I think maintaining an independent view of risk. There's so much being driven by regulatory requirements that there's a chance that we're going to lose our path, and innovation will go along lines that maybe aren't as ultimately useful as they would be otherwise.
Well, I think what's needed in the risk management industry is a more substantial systematic training process, so that now that we are aware of the fact that there are risks, that the risks are of all kinds, political, financial, economic, and on, that regulatory, for example, in my country, is that we need to have a better way to train people across the firm in perception of and dealing with risk, and also make the job of risk officer more professional, so that there is a profession with systematic training of future risk officers.
I think the biggest challenge has to be getting to grips with not just social media, but also social data. You know, increasingly, the finance industry is very expert at using that sort of mechanical, mathematical market data that comes out. Trades, transactions, valuations, movements of currency, they're experts there. But there's a whole other data set that plugs into that, and that's mining data out of social media presences, out of online conversations, trends in public opinion. Combining those data sets is going to be a real challenge, but it has to happen. I always use the example. I was at the Brazilian Grand Prix last week, and if the finance industry were predicting the results, who would get the biggest clap? You'd look at all the data and say, well, okay, Jenson Button won, he scored the most points, he should get a clap, and Sebastian Vettel became the world champion, he should get a clap. But who got the biggest cheer? You know, the social data explains that. What we call the social graph gives us the answer. It was Felipe Massa. Why? Because it's his home race. He's Brazilian. The crowds go mad for him. So if you take that mechanical data and combine it with the social data, you get a more rounded picture. And I think that's going to become increasingly important, particularly in the investment in the fund industry moving forwards.
Well, right now, there's no question that the biggest challenge for the risk management industry is to get it right with respect to sovereign risk. Sovereign risk, which goes beyond just Europe, but Europe, of course, is the epicenter of this now. In addition, I would say the introduction of better methods and measures for liquidity risk, and then finally, the intangible risks like reputation risk need to be addressed much more rigorously than they have in the past.
I think the biggest challenge will be most likely the capability that the industry will be able to extract value from also these regulatory new upcoming rules, because if this only became purely cost, it's going to be fairly difficult, and therefore try to get the advantage of the changing landscape from a regulatory perspective and adapt the business model in the most consistent ways is probably the biggest challenge in the next 5 years. You can not only consider the regulatory purely a cost, there's a lot of value that you can extract from the various requirements. So if you try to be constructive in that perspective, you will probably get even advantage from a trade at some point.
I'd say that that's an interaction of all the content that is coming for risk management and dealing with the complexity of all this content. Nowadays we are seeing a lot of silo solutions in the market, and there is not much interaction between these different solutions. So one of the challenges, or maybe the most important thing to achieve, would be an interaction of all these different sources and topics, including compliance, including audit, including the different risk areas, and to come up with some combined solution. So in order to show the people an added value of risk management at all, in order to shape a risk culture, in order to make people understand what's actually the most important point, or what are the most important areas in this whole risk world.